Alright everyone, it's time to talk about the Ghislaine Maxwell trial conclusion, the biggest cover-up of modern political history. I mean, I know Hunter Biden's laptop is big, and some of the other things that we'll talk about in this video are big. I think the Ghislaine Maxwell one is easily one of the biggest. Panama Papers is close, although it got so hush-hushed that it's difficult to even figure out exactly the scope of the corruption there. This has been happening over and over. Ghislaine Maxwell gets found guilty on 5 of 6 charges, so, potentially faces a very long time in prison. She'll probably get a sweetheart deal, and with good behavior and shit, maybe be out in a couple of years. She'll have the cushy cell in the low intensity ward in the Fed prison, where she has access to the books and the better meals and stuff. She's not going to be thrown in the gulag, because she is rich and well-connected, and she knows names. And so basically they can hardball her and just Epstein her. If they think that she's going to talk, she'll just kill herself, which won't actually be the case, but that's what they'll tell the public. And it'll be a little bit obvious. She's a little bit more protected because it would become, I think, a little bit too transparent that there was something fishy going on. Not that the average person in the public has more than a 15-minute attention span, so I guess they wouldn't worry too much. Or they can say, look, in return for your silence, we're making it easy for you. Yes, you have to go to prison, although we'll let you out in the rec yard as long as you want. And then you get out in a few years, you have your money and shit, but shut up. Don't tell anyone anything further. Case is over. We did the best we could with the highest class lawyers we could to make sure you didn't have to give testimony directly regarding any of the victimization that went on. Prince Andrew is literally not sweating because he knows that nothing will happen because of this. This is a huge cover-up, but not for the reasons you might suspect. I'll get into that in a moment. Keep in mind down below, if you're watching this video on YouTube, there will be a pinned comment with links to other video hosting sites that I use. Keep in mind I make at least one exclusive video every day on those platforms that doesn't end up on YouTube. Today it'll be 2. Normally it's 2 videos. In the future, probably towards the end of this year, I'm going to bump that to 3, but I have to do a lot of literary work first. That's where the bulk of my income comes from. Also, it's a long-term project. I want to get it wrapped up as quickly as possible. Then I can relax. Oh, I'll still be editing a shit ton every day. It's just that I won't have a specific deadline for the number of different edited works, and I can work on some of my own authored things. I've got a half a dozen other projects planned. It's going to be an interesting year. 2022 will be very good for me. My hope is that it's good for other people, but judging from the last year on the economy and society, we'll give it an even or. I'm not going to hedge any bets in regards to the trajectory of the political landscape especially. Here's the big problem that I have with the Ghislaine Maxwell cover-up. It's the legacy media's ultimate non-reporting and non-journalistic analysis takes on the case. Ghislaine Maxwell gets found guilty of trafficking minors. Is any legacy media network, including Fox, are any of them seriously asking, hey, where's the list of people that they were trafficked to? This isn't just a crime of, hey, you obtained a 17-year-old in Haiti or Puerto Rico or something, brought him to the island and Epstein had sex with them. This is, you had a whole list of clientele, heavy hitters. You look at Epstein's flight logs to and from Little St. James, it'll give you a fucking idea. By the way, Trump never was on St. James Island, nor at his ranch. That's been dispelled. It's a mythology. He did take Epstein's plane once to New York after about a 1-hour flight. I think his own plane was literally in the shop at the time. It wasn't long after that he disowned any connection to Epstein because he realized he was a pervert. This is something Bill Gates did not do. Hint, hint. If you were to look at a list of the people that are potentially implicated in wrongdoing, you've got royalty, you've got top-level Hollywood actors, major sports stars, major political figures, multi-billion-dollar corporatists, big bankers. You've got everything. You have a large segment of the world's rich and powerful potentially being implicated. Now, that's not pertinent to the trafficking case. To be clear, the suppression of that particular evidence makes sense in the course of this particular case. Otherwise, you could introduce prejudice in the future. You could skew this case, and then she ends up getting found not guilty because you've trotted out all the stuff that the defense calls conspiracy theories. The jury throws the verdict, and then Ghislaine Maxwell shuts up forever because she doesn't have to talk. That makes sense. But do I think there would be a higher likelihood that there would be some closure on this case if the legacy media reported on the obvious question, the elephant in the room that they want to ignore? who was trafficked. Hey, she's been found guilty. Now we need to dig deeper. You know, she was found guilty. The evidence was there. The jury agreed with the prosecution. Now is the time that as journalists, we have to ask who did what. Was Prince Andrew there? Did he get an illicit massage? Did Bill Gates get his face sat on? Maybe we should ask these questions. But they're not asking them. That's the big problem. And it reminds me of several other major scandals. One is the AP spying scandal. Oh boy, you remember even the AP itself hushed up mostly after that when Obama was directing the DOJ to harass and spy upon AP journalists that were too critical of his administration. This was the mid-2010s. Was there ever any follow-up? Did any legacy media outlet seriously ask the obvious question about press rights and the Fourth Amendment? No. Their rights were violated. The rights of the free press were violated. There wasn't any closure. What about the Panama Papers? Most of you probably haven't even heard that term. If you did, it was half a decade ago. You had a massive trove of leaks that implicated a gigantic corruption scheme involving half the world's big industries, national governments, big banks, all colluding together, manipulating markets, etc., offshoring, sleazy slush fund deals to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars through Panamanian fronts. Most people don't even know that it existed. Most of you probably have never even heard of it. And that's among clankers, to be clear. People who actually get legitimate independent commentary each morning, and you still probably didn't even know this fucking happened. Well, you have to, you can't even search it on Google. You're not going to find much. You'll have to use Brave or Yandex or at least like DuckDuckGo or something like that. Otherwise, you'll still be ignorant of it. So I'm not even going to bother covering it because it's so gargantuan. I'd need like a 4-part video series to explain it. And so get the commentary from someone else who's even more obsessed with the issue of that having closure. What about Michael Hastings? You remember him? He was looking into the FBI director at the time and got a little bit too close, and all of a sudden he got a brand new sports car that rocketed down the street and killed him when the engine block blew up and flew 50 yards the first time that he drove it, after he had expressed a sentiment about being followed, I think, prior, although there are some overlaps with the Seth Rich story with that. Very interesting case. By the way, Michael Hastings, after death, gets summarily cremated against the family's wishes. No, there's no forensic evidence here. He must have been drunk or something. We're not sure, but he crashed his car and he died. That's it. Brand new sports cars typically lose complete control and blow up and the engine block flies, halfway across a block. That's normal. It's very, very normal then that the body is immediately cremated. It's a scandal. Epstein is probably the best recent example. Even better because it ties in directly to the Ghislaine Maxwell case. Epstein's guards, the ones that say, oh yeah, we falsified records, by the way, with regards to this to cover our asses. Yeah, we fell asleep while we were on duty. One of them wasn't even technically a guard at all, but just a trainee. We're sorry. Yeah, we knew that he had just come off of suicide watch. We knew he was high risk. We knew that this was a massive, massive case, so this is an A-plus list prisoner here. But we fell asleep. We were tired and shit. Guess what just happened? Prosecutors dropped the charges against them. Yeah. Something is rotten in Denmark or wherever that. I think this is in New York. Same thing, basically. High tax, socialistic. It's just that New York is more locked down. This cover-up is huge. Because it ties into Epstein's suicide. It ties into, with the guards and the prosecutors, apparently prosecutorial corruption. That's misconduct. Obviously, misconduct. At the very least, it should be negligence. You were tasked with watching this person, making sure that they didn't kill themselves because they're a suicide risk, and you were negligent. You didn't do your job. Negligent homicide, or whatever you want to label it. It's not necessarily first-degree murder unless you can prove a behind-the-scenes conspiracy. Then you find out the electronics were tampered with, and all of the cameras were off at the same time. What a coincidence. What a series of coincidences led up to that so-called suicide. Sort of like Vince Foster's shooting himself successfully in the back multiple times. Really, really easy. Ghislaine Maxwell trafficked minors. I would like to know who they were trafficked to. I would like the legacy media to do its job. It's not going to do its job. Fox knows better. Some of their executives probably went to Epstein Island too. See, here's the problem. When you have this kind of level of corruption, when you have this many people involved with, let's say, trillions of dollars in collective assets, plus control of some major machinations of government and justice, there's no way to prosecute them. There's no way to find out the corruption because it is too vast. Barring some sort of guillotine-led fucking French Revolution style thing going on, you're never going to actually gain any closure. The best you can hope for is that they steer their perversion away from victimizing people and show some self-control just for legal purposes. They're afraid of one rogue prosecutor's Nick Valentine style who just won't leave them alone and is a total gadfly. Unfortunately, that's more Gangland 50s movie than it is actual reality. So, I don't expect there to be closure on this. I expect the legacy media continues to push the story under the rug. We'll be very quiet about the prosecutors dropping the charges against the Epstein guards. Won't ask questions about Epstein. Doesn't want to touch the story any more than it will Michael Hastings, Seth Rich, the Panama Papers, AP spying scandal, and dozens of other examples. They'll fixate instead, and they'll cover up in the news cycle my insurrection and bullshit like that, my January 6th, which is set to become, I guess, the Democrats' de facto national new holiday. They'll talk about that. They'd rather talk about inflation. They'd rather talk about anything that doesn't implicate half of their own corporate CEOs. I can't blame them. It makes sense. When you have a throttling control of a significant proportion of info, why do you think that sometimes mentions of this sort of thing get you banned off of big tech? Half the big tech billionaires went to Epstein Island. I can't recall which ones. Sundar Pichai, did he go there? Was Jeff Bezos ever at his ranch? Maybe so. Who fucking knows? The legacy media is not going to tell anyone. That's about all. Peace out.